Everywhere we look today, wealth appears loud. Luxury cars move through crowded streets. Expensive watches shine on social media. Huge houses appear in magazines and online videos. These images create a powerful idea in the mind. They tell us that wealth must be visible. They suggest that rich people constantly show their success to the world. But this belief hides a deeper truth. Real wealth rarely begins with noise. Before the world notices success, years of quiet work usually happen behind the scenes. Long hours of thinking, careful decisions, patience that most people never see. The richest individuals in history often built their fortunes slowly and quietly. For example, Warren Buffett spent decades investing patiently before the world fully understood the scale of his wealth. For many years, he lived a simple life while his investments silently multiplied. The same quiet discipline appeared in the thinking of Charlie Munger, who believed that great results often come from long periods of calm patience followed by a few wise decisions. This pattern repeats again and again in the stories of successful investors, entrepreneurs, and builders. First comes silence. Then comes growth. Only much later comes recognition. But most people see only the final stage. They see the success after it becomes visible. They miss the long, quiet years that created it. Because of this misunderstanding, many people chase the appearance of wealth instead of the process that creates it. They focus on looking successful rather than becoming financially strong. This mistake leads millions of people in the wrong direction. They spend when they should save. They chase trends when they should build patience. They seek attention when they should build value. And slowly, without realizing it, they move further away from real wealth. Understanding silent wealth changes this perspective completely. It reveals that the most powerful financial progress often happens quietly, in small decisions repeated over time, in disciplined habits that attract little attention, in patience that most people find difficult to practice. This quiet path may not look exciting at first, but it has created many of the greatest fortunes in the world. And once you begin to understand it, you start to notice a strange contrast between appearance and reality. Many people who appear wealthy are not truly wealthy at all, which leads us directly to an important question. If real wealth grows quietly, why does society celebrate loud wealth so much? To understand this difference, we must first explore one of the biggest financial illusions in modern life. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Loud Wealth. The modern world celebrates visibility. Success is expected to look impressive. People are encouraged to display their lifestyle, their possessions, and their achievements. The louder the display, the more attention it receives. Luxury cars attract cameras. Expensive vacations fill social media feeds. Designer brands signal status to strangers. Because these images appear everywhere, many people begin to believe that visible wealth is real wealth. But this belief hides a dangerous illusion. Loud wealth and real wealth are often very different things. Loud wealth focuses on appearance. Real wealth focuses on ownership. A person may drive an expensive car but still carry heavy debt. Another person may live simply while quietly owning valuable assets. From the outside, the first person looks richer, but in reality, the second person may be financially stronger. This misunderstanding has existed for a long time, but the modern world has amplified it. Social media platforms reward attention. Images that show luxury attract more views. The algorithm favors excitement, display, and comparison. Slow financial discipline rarely attracts attention. Saving money quietly is not dramatic. Investing patiently does not create viral videos. Building wealth step by step does not look exciting. Because of this, the quiet process of wealth building becomes almost invisible. Meanwhile, visible spending becomes a symbol of success. This creates a powerful psychological trap. People begin to chase the appearance of wealth rather than the substance of wealth. They buy things to signal success. They upgrade their lifestyle too quickly. They compare their lives with others who may only be displaying a highlight of reality. Over time, these decisions slowly weaken their financial foundation. True wealth, however, moves in the opposite direction. It grows quietly through ownership. Ownership of businesses. Ownership of productive assets. Ownership of investments that generate value over time. The difference between spending and owning is enormous. Spending removes money from your future. Ownership multiplies money in your future. Many of the greatest investors in history understood this principle deeply. For example, Benjamin Graham taught that intelligent investors focus on the value of assets rather than market excitement. His philosophy influenced generations of investors, including Warren Buffett, who built one of the largest fortunes in history through patient and disciplined investing. Interestingly, Buffett lived in the same modest house for many decades while his wealth grew into the billions. This behavior surprised many people. They expected visible signs of extreme luxury. Instead, they found something unusual: quiet discipline. This contrast reveals a powerful truth. Real wealth often looks ordinary. It does not need constant attention. It does not depend on public recognition. It grows in the background while the world focuses on louder stories. Understanding this difference changes how we interpret success. When we stop measuring wealth by appearance, we begin to notice a new pattern. The people who appear the most impressive are not always the most financially secure. Meanwhile, some of the most financially powerful individuals appear surprisingly simple. They focus less on displaying wealth and more on building it. They protect their capital carefully. They think in long-time horizons. They value stability more than attention. This quiet mindset also protects them from one of the biggest dangers in modern finance: lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation happens when income increases and spending rises just as quickly. Instead of building wealth, the person simply upgrades their lifestyle. A bigger apartment, a more expensive car, frequent luxury experiences. Each upgrade feels rewarding in the moment, but it also increases financial pressure. Expenses grow, expectations rise. Freedom slowly decreases. Many people become trapped in a cycle where their lifestyle requires constant high income. If the income stops, the lifestyle becomes impossible to maintain. True wealth works differently. Instead of increasing spending with every income increase, disciplined investors direct the surplus into assets. Those assets begin to generate additional income. Over time, this creates a powerful shift. Instead of working only for money, money begins working for them. This shift does not happen quickly. It happens slowly through repeated disciplined decisions. Small investments made consistently. Careful control of spending. Patience during market uncertainty. At first, the progress appears small, but with time, the effect becomes remarkable. Compounding begins to accelerate growth. Each year, the base becomes larger. Each year, the growth becomes stronger. Eventually, the quiet progress becomes undeniable. But by the time others notice it, the foundation has already been built over many years. This is why silent wealth often surprises people. They see the final result but not the long journey behind it. The illusion of loud wealth distracts society from this journey. It teaches people to focus on symbols instead of substance. Yet history repeatedly shows that the most durable fortunes come from the opposite approach: quiet discipline, long-term thinking, ownership of productive assets. Even some of the world's most innovative entrepreneurs practice this principle during the early stages of their careers. For example, Jeff Bezos focused intensely on building long-term value in Amazon rather than chasing short-term profits or public approval. For many years, the company reinvested nearly everything back into growth. To outside observers, the strategy sometimes looked strange, but over time, the quiet reinvestment created one of the most valuable companies in the world. This story illustrates a pattern seen again and again. Short-term appearances rarely reveal long-term outcomes. The loudest signals are not always the most meaningful ones, and the quietest progress often creates the greatest results. Understanding this idea changes how we interpret wealth. Instead of asking who looks successful today, a wiser question appears: who is quietly building assets that will grow tomorrow? Once we begin asking this question, our focus shifts away from appearance and toward growth. We begin to value patience. We begin to respect discipline. We begin to appreciate slow progress. This shift is the first step towards silent wealth. But to fully understand how quiet fortunes grow, we must explore another powerful force that works silently in the background of financial success. A force so powerful that even small actions can grow into extraordinary results over time. That force is invisible growth, and it is the foundation of nearly every great fortune in history. Which brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 2. The Power of Invisible Growth. Most powerful forces in life begin quietly. They start so small that people barely notice them, but with time they grow stronger and stronger. We see this pattern in nature. A small seed becomes a large tree. A tiny stream slowly becomes a powerful river. Wealth often grows in the same way. At the beginning, the progress appears almost invisible. A small amount of savings, a modest investment, a slow increase in value year after year. Nothing dramatic seems to happen. Because of this, many people lose patience during the early stage of wealth building. They expect quick results. They want visible progress immediately. When they do not see rapid growth, they assume the strategy is not working. But the truth is very different. The early stage of wealth building is usually the slowest stage. During this period, the foundation is being created. Money is being saved. Investments are being accumulated. Habits of discipline are being developed. All of this work happens quietly. From the outside, it may look ordinary, but inside the financial system, something powerful is beginning to form. The engine of compounding. Compounding is simple to understand, but difficult to appreciate emotionally. It means that money begins to generate additional money. Then that additional money also begins generating more growth. The process repeats again and again. Year after year, the effect becomes stronger. The early growth is small, but later the same process produces much larger results. This is why patience is essential. Many people stop investing just before compounding begins to accelerate. They quit during the quiet stage when progress appears slow, but those who continue eventually experience something remarkable. Growth begins to expand rapidly. A portfolio that once moved slowly now begins to increase more noticeably. Income from investments begins to grow. Financial stability becomes stronger. This transformation does not happen because of luck. It happens because time has been allowed to do its work. The power of time is often underestimated in financial thinking. People focus on the size of their investment instead of the duration of their investment. But time is often more powerful than size. A modest investment allowed to grow for many years can become far more valuable than a large investment held for only a short period. This idea is one reason why many successful investors begin early and remain consistent. They understand that time is their greatest ally. One famous example is Warren Buffett. Much of his enormous wealth was not created through sudden events. It developed gradually through decades of disciplined investing. For many years, his portfolio grew quietly. Only later did the compounding effect become extraordinary. His long-term partnership with Charlie Munger also emphasized this philosophy. Together, they believed that patient ownership of strong businesses could produce exceptional long-term results. Their strategy did not depend on constant activity. In fact, they often explained that successful investing sometimes requires doing very little. Instead of constantly buying and selling, they preferred to hold strong investments for long periods. This allowed compounding to operate without interruption. The concept may sound simple, but it requires emotional discipline. Markets move up and down. Economic news creates uncertainty. Predictions change constantly. During these moments, many investors feel pressure to react quickly. They sell when fear appears. They chase opportunities when excitement spreads. But frequent reactions can interrupt the compounding process. Every unnecessary change resets the growth cycle. Patient investors understand that temporary volatility is part of the journey. Instead of reacting emotionally, they focus on long-term progress. They understand that invisible growth requires time and stability. Another important element of invisible growth is reinvestment. When profits or dividends are reinvested, the compounding process becomes stronger. Each cycle of growth begins from a larger base. Over time, the increase becomes dramatic. This is why disciplined investors rarely consume all of their financial gains. They reinvest a significant portion back into their assets. This decision may feel difficult in the short term, but it multiplies future possibilities. The difference between spending and reinvesting can shape an entire financial life. One path produces temporary satisfaction. The other produces expanding opportunity. Many successful entrepreneurs also apply this principle. Instead of extracting all profits from their businesses, they reinvest in growth. They improve products. They expand operations. They strengthen long-term value. A well-known example is Jeff Bezos, who repeatedly reinvested earnings into Amazon during its early decades. For years, the company focused on expansion rather than short-term profit. To some observers, this strategy appeared risky, but the long-term reinvestment allowed the company to grow into one of the most influential businesses in the world. The lesson is clear. Invisible growth often looks slow at first, but it builds unstoppable momentum over time. Those who understand this principle learn to value patience more than excitement. They respect steady progress more than sudden success, and most importantly, they avoid the trap of comparing their early stage with someone else's final stage. Comparison is one of the biggest enemies of invisible growth. When people constantly measure their progress against others, they feel pressure to accelerate results. This pressure often leads to risky decisions. They may chase speculative investments. They may abandon long-term strategies for quick opportunities. Sometimes these decisions create temporary gains, but more often they create instability and losses. The quiet path of compounding requires a different mindset, a mindset that values consistency over speed, stability over excitement, patience over urgency. When this mindset becomes part of daily financial behavior, something powerful happens. Small, disciplined actions begin to accumulate. Savings grow, investments expand, confidence increases. Year after year, the invisible engine continues working quietly in the background. Eventually, the results become visible to others. But by that time, the patient builder already understands the truth. The real work happened long before anyone noticed. And this understanding leads naturally to another important question. If invisible growth is so powerful, what kind of thinking allows some people to stay patient long enough to benefit from it? Why do certain individuals remain calm and disciplined, while others constantly chase noise and excitement? The answer lies in a particular way of thinking about wealth and success, a mindset that many of the world's most successful investors quietly share. Which brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 3. The Billionaire Mindset. Wealth is not created only by money. It is created first by thinking. The way a person thinks about time, risk, patience, and opportunity often determines their financial future. Many people believe billionaires are simply lucky or unusually intelligent. But when we study their decisions closely, another pattern appears. They often think differently from the crowd. While many people focus on short-term excitement, wealthy builders focus on long-term outcomes. While others chase fast results, they build systems that grow slowly and steadily. This difference in thinking forms what we can call the billionaire mindset. The billionaire mindset does not depend on starting with enormous resources. Instead, it depends on a set of principles that guide decisions over long periods of time. One of the most important principles is patience. Patience allows a person to wait for the right opportunity instead of reacting to every situation. For example, Charlie Munger often explained that great investors spend much of their time simply waiting. They wait for situations where the odds are clearly in their favor. They wait for opportunities where risk is limited and potential reward is strong. Most of the time, they remain calm and inactive. This idea may sound strange in a world that celebrates constant activity, but inactivity can be a powerful advantage. Every decision carries risk. By making fewer but better decisions, disciplined investors reduce unnecessary mistakes. Another principle of the billionaire mindset is independent thinking. Many people follow the crowd because it feels comfortable. If everyone around them is making the same decision, they feel safe. But financial history repeatedly shows that crowds are often wrong at critical moments. When excitement spreads, assets may become dangerously overpriced. When fear spreads, valuable opportunities may appear. Independent thinkers are able to step back from these emotional waves. They ask simple but powerful questions. What is the real value of this opportunity? What are the long-term possibilities? What risks are being ignored by others? These questions allow them to make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. This habit was also central to the philosophy of Benjamin Graham, who taught investors to analyze businesses carefully instead of reacting to market moods. His ideas later shaped the investment strategy of Warren Buffett, who became one of the most successful investors in history. Buffett often explained that successful investing is not about predicting the market. It is about understanding value and waiting patiently for the right price. This approach reflects another powerful element of the billionaire mindset: long-term thinking. Most people plan their financial decisions around short periods of time. They think about the next month, the next year, sometimes the next few years. But many great investors think in decades. They ask questions such as, will this business still be valuable many years from now? Will this investment continue creating value far into the future? Thinking this way changes how decisions are made. Short-term market movements become less important. Temporary setbacks become easier to tolerate. The focus shifts toward long-lasting value. Another characteristic of the billionaire mindset is emotional control. Money can easily trigger powerful emotions. Excitement when prices rise. Fear when markets fall. Impatience when progress appears slow. These emotions can lead to impulsive decisions. But disciplined investors train themselves to remain calm during both success and uncertainty. They understand that emotions are temporary, but decisions can have long-lasting consequences. This emotional discipline creates stability. When markets become chaotic, calm investors often find opportunities that others overlook. For example, during periods of economic panic, many investors rush to sell their assets. Prices fall rapidly because fear spreads quickly. But patient investors sometimes view these moments differently. They see falling prices as potential opportunities to buy valuable assets at lower valuations. This approach requires courage and preparation. It is difficult to act calmly when others are afraid. But those who develop this mindset often benefit from situations that frighten the crowd. Another important aspect of the billionaire mindset is curiosity. Successful wealth builders remain lifelong learners. They constantly study businesses, markets, technology, and human behavior. Knowledge improves decision-making. Better decisions improve long-term outcomes. Even after achieving enormous success, many great investors continue reading, studying, and thinking every day. This habit keeps their thinking sharp and adaptable. The billionaire mindset therefore combines several powerful qualities: patience, independent thinking, long-term vision, emotional discipline, curiosity, and continuous learning. Together, these qualities create a mental framework that supports silent wealth building. Instead of chasing attention, this mindset focuses on value. Instead of reacting to noise, it focuses on understanding. Instead of rushing for quick results, it builds foundations that can last for decades. Over time, this way of thinking produces something extremely valuable: clarity. Clear thinking allows better choices. Better choices compound into powerful outcomes. And this is how many great fortunes quietly begin. Not with sudden luck, but with a mindset that consistently chooses patience over noise. However, there is another important reason why many wealthy individuals prefer to build quietly. Silence itself can become a powerful advantage. Because when wealth grows without constant attention, it avoids many of the pressures that destroy financial progress. To understand this advantage, we must explore the next idea. Chapter 4. Silence protects wealth. In a world that constantly rewards visibility, silence may appear unusual. People are encouraged to share their achievements, display their lifestyle, and announce their success. But many individuals who build lasting wealth choose a different path. They remain quiet. This silence is not weakness. It is often a form of protection. When wealth becomes highly visible, it attracts attention. Attention creates pressure. Pressure can influence decisions in dangerous ways. People who display their success too loudly often feel the need to maintain that image. They feel pressure to keep upgrading their lifestyle. They feel pressure to prove their success again and again. This cycle can slowly weaken financial stability. Spending increases. Expectations rise. Freedom decreases. Quiet wealth builders avoid this trap. They do not feel the need to impress strangers. They do not measure their success through public recognition. Instead, They focus on something much more important: control. Control over their time, control over their decisions, control over their financial future. Silence helps them maintain this control. Without constant attention, they can make decisions calmly. They can think carefully about long-term outcomes. They can build patiently without distraction. History provides many examples of this quiet approach. For many years, Bill Gates worked intensely on software development while Microsoft was still growing. During the early period, the company was not surrounded by the enormous attention it later received. Those quiet years allowed deep focus. Focus allowed innovation. Innovation created one of the most influential companies in modern history. Silence often protects concentration. When a person constantly seeks attention, their focus becomes divided. Energy is spent maintaining an image instead of building value, but quiet builders direct their energy toward progress rather than appearance. They spend more time thinking and less time proving. This difference may appear small, but over many years it creates enormous advantages. Silence also protects wealth from unnecessary conflict. Visible success can attract comparison. Comparison can create resentment. Resentment sometimes leads to competition or criticism. These distractions consume time and mental energy. Quiet wealth avoids much of this tension. When progress happens quietly, fewer people feel the need to compete or interfere. The builder is left alone to continue developing their work. Silence also encourages humility. Humility keeps people open to learning. When success becomes highly public, individuals may begin believing their own reputation. They may assume their judgment is always correct. This belief can lead to dangerous overconfidence, but quiet builders often remain grounded. They remember how difficult the journey has been. They remember the mistakes they made along the way. They continue learning and improving. Humility keeps their thinking clear. Another advantage of silence is emotional stability. Public attention amplifies emotional reactions. When people receive praise, they may feel pressure to maintain perfection. When they receive criticism, they may react defensively. Both reactions can influence financial decisions. Quiet builders avoid much of this emotional turbulence. Their progress does not depend on public approval. Their motivation comes from internal goals rather than external applause. This creates a calm environment for decision-making, and calm decision-making is extremely valuable in finance. Markets move unpredictably. Economic conditions change. Unexpected events appear. In these moments, emotional stability becomes a powerful advantage. Those who remain calm can evaluate situations logically. Those who react emotionally often make costly mistakes. Silence, therefore, acts as a shield. It protects focus. It protects humility. It protects emotional balance. All of these qualities strengthen long-term wealth building. Another reason many wealthy individuals remain quiet is privacy. Privacy allows them to live freely without constant observation. When every decision becomes public, personal freedom decreases. Quiet wealth preserves independence. A person can choose how to live without needing approval from others. They can make unconventional decisions. They can take thoughtful risks. They can build patiently without explaining every step to the world. This independence often leads to better outcomes. Because innovation and creativity require freedom. People who constantly worry about public perception rarely experiment with bold ideas, but quiet builders can explore possibilities without fear of judgment. Over time, this freedom creates powerful advantages. New businesses emerge. New strategies develop. New opportunities appear. And once again, the pattern repeats. Years of quiet effort suddenly produce visible success. Observers often see the final moment and describe it as an overnight achievement. But the reality is very different. Behind that moment are many years of silent work. This pattern reminds us of an important truth. Noise attracts attention. Silence builds strength. The world often celebrates the loudest stories, but the strongest foundations are usually built away from the spotlight. When people understand this idea, their definition of success begins to change. They stop chasing constant recognition. They stop measuring progress through comparison. Instead, they focus on building quietly and consistently. This shift creates a more stable financial life. But silence alone is not enough to build lasting wealth. Behind the quiet progress, there must also be discipline in everyday decisions. Discipline in spending, discipline in saving, discipline in investing for the future. Because the habits of daily life ultimately determine whether silent wealth continues growing or slowly disappears. Which leads us to the next chapter, Chapter 5. The discipline of quiet living. Silent wealth does not grow only through investing. It also grows through the way a person lives each day. Habits shape financial outcomes. Small daily decisions slowly build or destroy wealth. Many people believe wealth comes mainly from earning more money. Income is important, but income alone does not create lasting financial strength. Without discipline, higher income often leads to higher spending. This pattern is extremely common. A person receives a salary increase. Soon after, they upgrade their lifestyle. A bigger home, a more expensive car, more frequent luxury experiences. At first, these upgrades feel like rewards for success, but over time, they create something dangerous. Dependence. The person becomes dependent on maintaining a high level of income just to support their lifestyle. If income suddenly decreases, the entire structure becomes fragile. Expenses remain high. Pressure increases. Financial stress appears quickly. This is the opposite of silent wealth. Silent wealth creates freedom. Lifestyle inflation often removes that freedom. Quiet wealth builders understand this difference clearly. They do not rush to upgrade their lifestyle with every increase in income. Instead, they separate two important ideas: income and spending. Just because income grows does not mean spending must grow at the same speed. A large portion of their additional income is directed toward assets. Investments grow. Savings increase. Financial security strengthens. This discipline may appear simple, but it is extremely powerful over long periods of time. One famous example is Warren Buffett. Despite becoming one of the richest individuals in the world, he continued living in a relatively modest house for many decades. His lifestyle choices remained surprisingly simple compared to the scale of his wealth. This behavior reflects an important principle. Wealth is built by controlling expenses as carefully as income. Another aspect of quiet living is clarity about what truly creates happiness. Many purchases are driven by comparison rather than genuine need. People see others enjoying certain lifestyles and feel pressure to match them. But comparison is endless. There will always be someone with a larger house, a newer car, or a more luxurious vacation. If happiness depends on comparison, satisfaction becomes impossible. Quiet wealth builders step away from this race. They focus on personal values instead of social competition. They ask a simple question: what actually improves my life? Often the answers are surprisingly simple: time with family, health and well-being, freedom to choose meaningful work, security for the future. Many of these sources of happiness do not require extravagant spending. In fact, financial discipline often protects them. When spending is controlled, stress decreases. When savings grow, security increases. When investments expand, freedom becomes possible. This freedom is one of the greatest benefits of silent wealth. It allows individuals to make decisions based on purpose rather than financial pressure. They can choose work that interests them. They can support their families with confidence. They can navigate economic uncertainty with greater stability. Another powerful habit of quiet living is delayed gratification. Delayed gratification means choosing a larger future reward instead of a smaller immediate reward. For example, investing money instead of spending it today. At first, this decision may feel difficult. The immediate pleasure of spending is strong, but over time, delayed gratification becomes easier because the results begin to appear. Savings grow steadily, investments produce returns, financial independence slowly moves closer. This growing progress becomes its own motivation. Each disciplined decision strengthens the next one. Another important part of quiet living is avoiding unnecessary financial complexity. Some people believe wealth requires complicated strategies and constant activity. But many successful investors follow surprisingly simple approaches. For example, John Bogle, the founder of the Vanguard Group, strongly promoted simple long-term investing through broad market index funds. His philosophy emphasized low costs, patience, and consistent investment. Millions of investors have benefited from this straightforward approach. Simplicity reduces mistakes. Simplicity reduces stress. Simplicity allows investors to stay consistent during uncertain times, and consistency is essential for silent wealth to grow. Quiet living, therefore, becomes a powerful financial strategy. Spend with awareness. Save with discipline. Invest with patience. These habits may not attract attention, but they quietly strengthen the financial foundation year after year. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Financial pressure begins to fade. Expenses remain manageable. Investments generate income. Opportunities expand. The individual gains something more valuable than visible luxury. Freedom. Freedom of time. Freedom of choice. Freedom from constant financial worry. This is the real reward of silent wealth. However, maintaining this quiet progress requires one more important skill: the ability to ignore the constant noise of financial predictions and market excitement. Because the modern world produces endless information about money, markets, and opportunities. Much of this information creates confusion rather than clarity. Understanding how to navigate this noise is essential for protecting silent wealth. Which brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Danger of Financial Noise. The modern financial world is filled with noise. Every day, new predictions appear. Markets are described as rising, falling, booming, or collapsing. News channels discuss economic events every hour. Social media spreads opinions from thousands of voices. Experts debate what will happen next. For many people, this constant flow of information creates confusion. They feel pressure to react quickly. They believe every new headline requires a financial decision, but this belief is often dangerous. Most financial noise is short-term. It focuses on immediate events rather than long-term trends. A single day of market movement becomes breaking news. A temporary economic change becomes a dramatic prediction. Yet when we examine long-term financial history, a different picture appears. Markets move in cycles. Businesses grow slowly. Economic progress unfolds over many years. The daily noise rarely changes the long-term direction of strong investments. This is why many successful investors deliberately limit their exposure to financial noise. They understand that constant information can lead to constant reactions, and constant reactions often destroy long-term performance. One investor who spoke clearly about this problem was Peter Lynch. He once explained that people often lose money not because markets perform poorly, but because investors panic during temporary declines. Fear spreads quickly when headlines become negative. Prices fall. Commentators predict disaster. Investors feel pressure to sell, but markets have experienced many periods of fear throughout history. Economic recessions appear. Political events create uncertainty. Unexpected crises disturb financial stability. Despite these events, long-term economic growth has continued across decades. Patient investors who remained calm during difficult periods often benefited later when markets recovered. Another voice of wisdom on this subject is Warren Buffett. He often reminds investors that markets can behave emotionally in the short term. Prices may move because of fear or excitement rather than real business value. But over time, the true value of strong businesses tends to appear. This idea encourages a different approach to financial information. Instead of reacting to every headline, disciplined investors focus on fundamental questions. Is the business strong? Does it create real value? Will it likely remain useful many years from now? These questions are far more important than short-term market predictions. Another problem with financial noise is that it encourages excessive activity. People begin trading frequently. They buy and sell investments constantly. They chase whatever opportunity appears popular at the moment. At first, this activity may feel productive. It creates the impression of control. It feels like progress. But frequent trading often produces two hidden costs. The first cost is financial. Transaction fees, taxes, and small losses slowly reduce long-term returns. Even when individual trades appear successful, these small costs accumulate over time. The second cost is psychological. Constant trading increases emotional stress. Every price movement becomes important. Every news event feels urgent. Instead of calmly following a long-term strategy, investors become trapped in a cycle of reaction. This cycle can be exhausting. It also distracts from the real purpose of investing. The purpose of investing is not constant activity. The purpose of investing is long-term growth. Many experienced investors therefore adopt a quieter approach. They study opportunities carefully. They make decisions with patience. Then, they allow time to do most of the work. This approach reduces unnecessary noise. It also aligns perfectly with the philosophy of silent wealth. Another danger of financial noise is the illusion of expertise. In modern media, many individuals present confident predictions about markets. They speak with certainty about future prices. They claim to understand exactly what will happen next. But the truth is that financial markets are extremely complex. Even highly experienced professionals cannot consistently predict short-term movements. Economic conditions change. Technological innovations appear. Unexpected events disrupt forecasts. Because of this uncertainty, disciplined investors focus less on prediction and more on preparation. They build diversified portfolios. They maintain financial reserves. They invest in assets that can endure changing conditions. Preparation is more reliable than prediction. It allows investors to remain stable even when unexpected events occur. Another helpful habit is selective attention. Instead of consuming every piece of financial news, quiet investors choose carefully what information deserves their focus. They may study long-term economic trends. They may analyze the fundamentals of businesses. They may read thoughtful analysis rather than sensational headlines. By filtering information carefully, they protect their thinking from unnecessary distraction. Clear thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions create stronger financial outcomes over time. When investors reduce financial noise in their lives, something interesting happens. Their strategy becomes simpler. They save consistently. They invest patiently. They ignore short-term market drama. At first, this calm approach may feel uncomfortable, because the world around them appears very active. Others seem to be making constant moves and chasing new opportunities. But over time, the quiet investor begins to notice something important. Many of those active strategies produce inconsistent results. Excitement rises quickly, but disappears just as quickly. Meanwhile, the quiet strategy continues progressing slowly but steadily. Year after year, the investments grow. The financial foundation becomes stronger. Eventually, the difference becomes clear. Noise creates motion. Silence creates progress. Understanding this distinction is essential for protecting silent wealth. Because wealth that grows patiently can easily be damaged by impulsive reactions to temporary noise. When investors learn to ignore unnecessary distractions, they gain a powerful advantage. They remain focused on the long-term journey rather than the daily headlines. And with this focus comes a deeper understanding of what wealth truly means. Not just money or assets, but freedom, security, and the ability to live life according to personal values rather than constant financial pressure. This deeper understanding leads to the final idea in our exploration of silent wealth. A realization that the greatest form of wealth is not always visible. Sometimes the most valuable success speaks without words. Which brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 7. Wealth that speaks without words. Not all wealth needs to be visible. In fact, some of the most powerful forms of wealth cannot be easily seen at all. Many people imagine wealth as luxury. Large houses, expensive cars, exotic vacations. These symbols are easy to notice. They attract attention quickly. But true wealth often expresses itself in quieter ways. It appears as freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom from constant financial worry. A person who has built silent wealth does not always need to prove it. Their life quietly reflects stability and independence. They can choose how to spend their days. They can pursue work that interests them rather than work that only pays bills. They can make decisions without the constant pressure of financial survival. This kind of wealth rarely attracts headlines, but it changes life in profound ways. Many people spend years chasing visible signs of success. They want recognition, status, and admiration. But admiration from strangers is temporary. It appears quickly and disappears just as quickly. Real wealth creates something much more lasting. Peace of mind. When financial security grows, anxiety about the future slowly fades. Unexpected expenses become manageable. Economic uncertainty becomes less frightening. This peace of mind is one of the greatest rewards of disciplined financial behavior. It cannot be purchased instantly. It must be built slowly over time. Every decision to save rather than spend. Every investment held patiently. Every moment of discipline contributes to this stability. Over many years, these small decisions accumulate. Eventually, the result becomes powerful. The individual is no longer living from one financial obligation to the next. Instead, they live with confidence about the future. Another quiet benefit of wealth is flexibility. Flexibility means the ability to adapt when life changes. Careers evolve. Industries transform. Personal priorities shift. Someone who has built financial strength can respond to these changes with greater freedom. They may start a new project. They may take time to learn new skills. They may explore opportunities that once seemed too risky. This flexibility creates opportunities that money alone cannot buy. It allows individuals to design a life based on purpose rather than necessity. We can observe this mindset in many thoughtful investors and builders. For example, Naval Ravikant often speaks about wealth as a tool for gaining independence rather than displaying status. He emphasizes that the real goal of financial success is freedom. Freedom from constant obligation. Freedom to focus on meaningful work. Freedom to live intentionally. This perspective changes the entire definition of success. Instead of measuring wealth through visible consumption, it measures wealth through independence. Another interesting aspect of silent wealth is how it influences personal relationships. When a person is financially secure, their interactions with others often become calmer and more genuine. They are not forced to compete constantly for resources. They are not pressured to impress others with expensive displays. They can focus on connection rather than comparison. This creates healthier relationships with family, friends, and colleagues. Financial pressure often creates stress within relationships. Arguments about money are common in many households, but when financial discipline creates stability, much of this tension disappears. Conversations shift from survival to planning. Families can think about the future with optimism rather than fear. Another quiet sign of wealth is patience. Individuals who have achieved financial stability often become less rushed. They do not feel pressured to chase every opportunity. They do not feel threatened by temporary setbacks. They understand that progress happens over long periods of time. This patience improves decision-making. When a person is not desperate for immediate results, they can evaluate opportunities more carefully. They can say no to poor decisions. They can wait for better possibilities. This calm approach often leads to better outcomes in both finance and life. We can also see that silent wealth encourages generosity. When individuals feel secure about their own future, they are often more willing to help others. They may support charitable causes. They may invest in community projects. They may mentor younger entrepreneurs or investors. Generosity becomes easier when fear about personal survival disappears. Many successful individuals eventually devote significant time and resources to philanthropy. For instance, Bill Gates later dedicated much of his energy to global health and education through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This example illustrates an important point. Wealth can become a tool for solving problems beyond personal comfort. When resources are used thoughtfully, they can improve the lives of many people. Another quiet expression of wealth is long-term vision. People who have achieved financial independence often begin thinking about legacy. They ask deeper questions about the future. What impact will their work have many years from now? How can their investments support innovation or progress? What values will they pass to the next generation? These questions reflect a shift in perspective. Wealth is no longer only about accumulation. It becomes about contribution. The person begins thinking beyond personal success. They think about building something meaningful that will last. This mindset creates a powerful cycle. Financial discipline builds stability. Stability creates freedom. Freedom encourages purpose, and purpose leads to contributions that extend far beyond personal gain. Yet even with all these advantages, silent wealth still follows the same quiet rule that began our journey. It grows slowly. It requires patience. It rewards discipline more than excitement. The individuals who understand this rule rarely rush their progress. They allow time to work quietly in their favor. Year after year, their foundation becomes stronger. Eventually, others may notice the results. But by that time, the builder already understands something important. The greatest achievements were created long before anyone was watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the idea of silent wealth and the hidden rules behind long-term success, consider subscribing to the channel so you do not miss future explorations of powerful ideas about money, investing, and the psychology of wealth.